Ryan Charles.
Ryan Charles.
Ryan is the CEO of the Moneybutton. The Moneybutton, Ryan va a decirnos qué es the Moneybutton, okay? Ryan, thank you for coming here, and we are expecting a lot of. Only one question before you begin. Is that true that you were one of the first developers to connect the blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain, to the internet?
Connect the Bitcoin blockchain to the internet. Well, yeah, that's true. So I mean, I've been involved in Bitcoin back to 2011. So I've worked at a number of companies, Bitpay, Reddit, and BitGo before I started what would become yours.org and Moneybutton. So I've been around for a very long time. I wrote a lot of the software that people use in the Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV world to create wallets and infrastructure and things like that. So I've always been around sort of consumer-facing things. So the thing that you actually use as an end user to engage with Bitcoin on the blockchain, I was involved with a lot of that.
Ese es el background de Ryan. Ryan es uno de los primeros desarrolladores de Bitcoin. Muchas de las cosas que ustedes usan hoy en Bitcoin, él las desarrolló. Así que, bienvenido Ryan. Welcome Ryan. Un buen aplauso para Ryan.
Gracias. Hola Colombia.
Hola.
Bienvenido.
So, I don't have a... All right. So I'm going to talk about, I'm going to have sort of two parts to my talk. And the first part will be just explaining what is Moneybutton. And the second part, I'm going to take advantage of the fact that Facebook recently launched, well, I shouldn't say launched, Facebook recently announced a new cryptocurrency that Facebook will be using, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about that. So first of all, so Moneybutton, the animation isn't working here, but Moneybutton is just a button that you can swipe to send any amount of money anywhere. So it's a button that you can embed inside websites or applications, and it actually is a Bitcoin wallet, a Bitcoin SV wallet, where the users have their keys. So it's a non-custodial Bitcoin wallet living inside of an iPhone. Okay, we'll load the PowerPoint here so I have the animation. I don't know if you can load the keynote, that one would work. If this one doesn't work, we'll cross fingers crossed there. Yeah, I don't think it's working. That's okay. Yeah, that's right. You can just visit moneybutton.com and you can check it out. Visit blog.moneybutton.com and you can see a bunch of demo websites and applications that use Moneybutton. Yeah, if we're lucky, the keynote will work. Otherwise, it might work. It'll work on OS 10. We should probably just give it up and move on. The animation doesn't work. It's not a big deal. Okay. So I'll just explain it to you, though. What is Moneybutton? So for the developers in the audience, Moneybutton is something that is a very simple payment system for you to plug into your website, basically. You basically just copy some code that looks something like this. In this example, I'm showing you what it looks like in React. So we're solving the problems for the developers to make it easy to plug in a payment system. We're also solving the problems for the end user to make it easy for you to send a payment. One way of looking at what we're doing is simply solving the user experience problem of Bitcoin. So we make it really easy for people to pay to another user. So not only can you use this on your website to accept payments to yourself, you can put it on your website and have your users pay other users. So it's actually a social network on top of Bitcoin that allows people to use payments any which way. We allow people to pay multiple different people at the same time. So you can imagine doing things like buying an article with Moneybutton and paying the writer of the article and the editor and the publisher in 3 different outputs at the same time. And under the hood, what it's doing is simply building a Bitcoin transaction with more than one output. We also support writing data to the blockchain. So this is how, in Steve Shatter's talk, he was talking about how we were able to use Moneybutton in sort of collaboration with a number of users to write very large amounts of data to the blockchain. things like images and videos and audio, and we support all that type of thing. So you can easily write data of any sort to the blockchain using Moneybutton. We support custom scripts, so any of the scripts that you can put inside of an output right now. Basically what that means is you can do smart contracts inside of an output. You can do that with Moneybutton. We also allow visual customization. You can write in a custom label, so you can plug in an application that you're using. We support any currency. So here in Colombia, you can choose as a user based in Colombia, you choose the Colombian peso. If you live in a different country, I live in the US, so I personally choose the US dollar. We have a lot of people all over the world picking the display currency to be whatever they want. Under the hood, everything is actually Bitcoin, but it shows you the value in a currency that you are familiar with. We support callbacks. So inside of the application can respond to the payment. So when the payment happens, your application can do things like show the content behind a paywall, or it can do a number of advanced things like, do things like reveal to someone that the payment has occurred. It can initiate. Number one, Moneybutton is an API. It's a very easy Bitcoin payments into an existing website or an application, or you can build a new application around Moneybutton. It's an easy user experience for the end user. Since the early days, it's always been a problem creating a good user interface to Bitcoin. This is the problem we're trying to solve for the end user and make it easy for the user to actually make payments using Bitcoin. We support many advanced features of the blockchain. We don't yet support all of them, but the features that we do support enable you to do things that actually you can't do with PayPal, that you can't do with Visa, because you can send to multiple people at the same time, and custom scripts and things like that that aren't possible with other payment systems. We also support an integrated authentication system and OAuth system and basically a social network that allows you to connect what people are paying for to that identity and tracking what you are paying for. And finally, we have built-in currency conversion so that Moneybutton shows you the values that you understand in your native currency. So I'm showing in this slide just a couple of different ways that you can integrate Moneybutton into applications. We support many different sort of frameworks today, but in the future we'll be adding many more. So the long-term vision for Moneybutton is to be able to integrate it into any conceivable type of application or device, and you'll be able to see Moneybutton or use Moneybutton all over. And Moneybutton is completely free. Because we have found ways to monetize what we're doing that don't involve charging a transaction fee, we're able to charge 0% transaction fees. And the only fee that the user pays are to the Bitcoin miners. Those fees are extremely low. So we're able to give you a lower cost payment system than Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, Stripe, Square. For small merchants, it makes a giant difference that the transaction fees are so small. And finally, Moneybutton is non-custodial. What this means is that the user actually has their keys. Our company does not hold your money. It is not possible for us to, say, lock your funds or run away with your money. You have your keys. You can write it down, and you always have access to your money. So we're delivering on this promise of peer-to-peer electronic cash because you have your money. We don't have it. Inside Moneybutton, the users are sending money to other users. We are not a payment processor. We are not a bank or anything like that. The users are sending digital cash to other users. So the business model of Moneybutton is to use Moneybutton. This sounds funny to people, but we're serious. We're creating advanced services for businesses inside of our application. And people pay us using Moneybutton. Swiping Moneybutton by itself has 0% transaction fees. But we're building services that we know real businesses need for their business to operate. Businesses will be paying us monthly fees for these advanced services. So we literally use our own product to monetize what we are doing. So that's it for the first half of my talk. I want to dive into a whole different subject matter, but I'll briefly pause in case there are any questions. Any questions in the audience, and we'll see if there are.
Thank you, Brian. ¿Alguna pregunta? ¿Quién tiene preguntas para Brian? Bueno, yo sí. Do you think that the Libra, the Facebook coin, is going to eclipse Bitcoin in some way?
No, I do not. I'll give my second half of the talk, because actually I do want to explain that, and I can answer that in a lot more detail. I mean, in a nutshell, I don't think so, because I don't think that they've thought through all of the issues in a holistic way. And I think that you've seen this in things like the way that Facebook, the response that you've seen from governments, both people within the French government, people within the US government already have actually started to sort of, they've responded negatively to Libra, because what they're doing is threatening to governments. It's not a good idea to threaten governments. So I think that's probably their biggest problem. I think there are many other problems, because if you look at Libra, and I haven't thoroughly studied their work, I've only read one of their 4 white papers that they published. But they basically seem to be redoing a lot of the stuff that many of the other competitors to Bitcoin did, but I don't think they ever understood Bitcoin to begin with. So let me explain the second half of my talk here, and I'll dive into that in a lot more detail. Okay, so in the second half, I just want to give a bunch of basic background about how Bitcoin works and what we're doing and what makes this different than Facebook's new coin in particular, because this is going to, you'll probably be hearing a lot about Facebook's new cryptocurrency in the coming 6 months or a year. So first of all, Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. This is the title of the white paper. What this really means is you're sending digital cash to other people directly. It means that I give you a transaction. That is as fast as you can possibly give someone money. It does not go faster. You do not actually need the miners to be involved when you transact peer-to-peer with someone else. That's the peer-to-peer nature of Bitcoin. And with Craig in the audience, I mean, Craig is the one explaining these types of things to people right now, and I'm one of the people listening going, everything makes sense when you put it that way, doesn't it? So that's how Bitcoin is really supposed to work. It's peer-to-peer electronic cash. That is what we're doing inside Moneybutton when you send a transaction to another party. This is different than what Libra is doing. They're doing something a little bit different. They're not focused on that particular way of doing peer-to-peer electronic cash, and I don't think they've thought through all of the implications of their differences. I can't go into technical details right now just because I haven't finished studying their system, but it's very clear from my preliminary investigation that they don't think about it that way. Another idea in Bitcoin I think is really important and underappreciated throughout the history of Bitcoin, and today in Libra in particular, is that the idea of this is that you can build businesses that solve problems, including scaling problems inside Bitcoin itself. This is not about having some top-down, solution to every conceivable problem. This is about creating a system of peer-to-peer electronic cash that you can then use to solve problems and charge money for the solutions that you create, okay? So the idea is every problem with Bitcoin can be solved with Bitcoin. And when you understand this idea, this is how the real world economy works. You can use money to solve problems. You can use money to do things like distribute goods. In fact, you can even use money to solve problems with money. This is why you pay for things like accountants and lawyers. You're actually using money to solve problems with money. This is how we solve problems with Bitcoin. Even technical problems with Bitcoin can actually be solved by using Bitcoin. And when you understand this idea, you realize, we don't need to change the protocol over and over and over again. We can just use the original protocol. The original protocol gave us peer-to-peer electronic cash. We can use that to create businesses that solve problems. Whoops. Okay, so Bitcoin at scale. This is another idea. Now, Steve gave a very good overview of this in his talk just a minute ago. But the vision here is extremely large scale, vastly larger than most other people seem to be appreciating. Again, I'm just, this information is really coming from Craig. He's smiling as he's, okay, all right. I'm trying to understand all of these things, and you can see when you piece Craig's vision together, how this all ultimately makes sense. Bitcoin at scale means very large blocks. Because what you do is just about everything that you can imagine within the world economy, and this will take a very long time to accomplish all these things, but things like legal contracts, real legal contracts that you use when you hire someone, or when you do things like subscribe to a service or do a terms of service agreement or something like that. Each one of these things, even things like, I've been doing a lot of international travel recently. When you cross the border, you have to do things like have your passport and whip it out and all that type of thing. Wouldn't it be interesting if you could swipe Moneybutton every time you needed to sign something? Signing into a new country, signing a legal agreement, and sending money. Everything that you can imagine in the economy can be solved by just using Bitcoin that way. And when you use Bitcoin for every single one of these things, you end up with very, very, very large blocks. And again, when you appreciate that, what you really want to do is solve technical problems with Bitcoin by creating infrastructure businesses that earn Bitcoin for solving the problems. You realize that everything can ultimately be solved that way. And that's how we get to a very large scale. And when it comes to Libra in particular, it's very interesting that they put in their white paper, wow, look at how cool we are. We can do 1,000 transactions per second. When you understand how Bitcoin works, we can go vastly larger. The numbers that Steve and Jimmy were giving earlier are accurate. There is no reason why we can't go up to 1 million transactions per second. There's no reason why we can't go up vastly, vastly larger than that, okay? When I transact with you directly, there is no limit other than the speed of light, basically, and the speed of our computers to create the transactions. When you settle to the miners, when you understand that you can parallelize and pipeline everything, and you can build infrastructure businesses that solve all of these problems, well, we can go to very, very large blocks. And ultimately, you can even think through all of the implications of this. You can solve problems inside of the internet better using Bitcoin. So we're actually going to ultimately not just do things like make a better system of money, but actually ultimately replace the entire internet with something that has wonderful properties like immutability and authenticity and things like that. So an important thing is that people are worried about things like, oh, my transactions are on-chain and anyone can look at it. But when you realize that when blocks are very, very large, well, not just anyone can actually analyze all of the transactions on the chain. This takes very, very special equipment. I shouldn't say special equipment, I'll say, you have to be very dedicated to doing that type of analysis to actually understand who is sending who money. Because when you have extremely high transaction volume, and you do things like never reuse addresses, and do things like don't merge UTXOs and things like that, it's going to be very difficult for anyone to understand what's going on. Then you combine that with things like payment chains, where those things aren't even on-chain. We can transact directly, and the stuff that we want to keep off-chain can be off-chain. So we can have very, very strong privacy with a perfectly transparent global public blockchain. So privacy will actually get better at scale because it's harder to analyze all of the data when there are many more people using the blockchain. Another important idea is that law matters. This is something that has been not only overlooked by the rest of the cryptocurrency industry, but they've gone in completely the exact opposite direction of what they should have been doing. So law matters. We want to be able to sign real legal agreements. When we have a disagreement with someone, when we send them money and they don't give us back what we expected, we need to be able to go to court. We need to be able to use the law, okay? Law matters. Law matters because it matters in the economy. It matters in the way that you interact with other people. And so law matters. Okay. Another important idea is that the way Bitcoin was created was that, well, it wasn't supposed to be the case that you just print money forever to fund miners with a subsidy. That was just a way to kickstart adoption of the network. The way Bitcoin survives and grows permanently, long-term, is when the miners are paid very small transaction fees per transaction, but with a very large number of transactions. So when that happens, miners will be able to earn an unlimited amount of money as the network becomes more widely adopted. This is how miners are going to be paid. This is why InChain and CoinGeek and companies like that are heavily investing in mining itself, heavily investing in the research and development necessary to basically get to the point where we have very, very large blocks, because that's how the miners are going to be earning lots of money in the future. Another important idea that was built into Bitcoin since the very beginning, when you really want to understand how to solve all of these problems related to identity, contracts, transactions, financial instruments, everything that matters to the way that businesses operate in the economy, you ultimately need one giant global public blockchain. This is not about a world of 1,000 or 1,000,000 different cryptocurrencies. The people telling you that everyone is going to how money works, you need one of them. Money is something that we all agree to use. It is a common medium of exchange. We all agree to it. We use the same thing. And not just the money part of this, but everything else about the infrastructure, identity and contracts. We need a common protocol. If people in Colombia are going to engage with people in Argentina, and people in the UK, and people in China, we need one common protocol that everyone can use. If everyone is using a different protocol, say China uses something different, all that really means is we just can't engage with China, is what that means. We need everybody using one. We need one that solves every problem, every technical problem, every legal problem, every economic problem, one that works for everyone. And so that's all I have to say about that. Any questions about that? One thumbs up from the audience there. Thumbs up. Okay, that's all.
Don't go, Ryan. Wait a minute. ¿Alguno tiene una pregunta? Do you have a question? Well, I have a question for you. Do you think that Bitcoin Cash blockchain will have problems in the future due to the DSB affair?
Well, yes, but I think they were having a lot of other problems before they're even going to get to the problems with DSB. So, I mean, this is being filmed and all that, but I'll just say, I think anybody paying attention to what's going on in Bitcoin Cash right now realizes that in the Bitcoin Cash community, I don't think they understood the idea of a fixed protocol. They're having problems that are actually related to the fact that they want to change the protocol. That by itself is actually the more important problem. It's not just that they added DSV, it's that they think they need to add stuff. That's a problem. And we're seeing this happen right now. I don't want to go into details because I don't want to create a bunch of drama, but I think if you study what is going on inside Bitcoin Cash right now, you realize that's what's going on. So yes, DSV is a problem, but the more important problem is that they think it's a good idea to change the protocol.
One more thing. Do you think that the news that we had like a month ago when BitMEX said that the Bitcoin Cash blockchain was going back into the blockchain, like I don't know how many blocks to recover a certain amount of Bitcoins that were lost. Do you think that this is, a good precedent for Bitcoin?
No. Well, look, I mean, what I think will happen here is, so let me give a bit of background, because I'm in a very unusual situation in this industry when it comes to Bitcoin Cash versus Bitcoin SV. My company raised money from a number of investors, but those investors included people on the SV side and investors on the Bitcoin Cash side. And so I'm in a situation where basically the only reasonable thing I could do was analyze the facts and come up with the best decision. And they're making a number of errors in the Bitcoin Cash world, and I think that's one of them. I think that, I think it comes back to the protocol idea. I mean, I think they don't, look, it's a competitive situation, and what we're doing in the Bitcoin SV world, I believe is, although our price is currently lower, the reality is we're doing everything correctly, which is we are building real businesses that actually solve real problems for real people. And that's the right way to do it. We don't need any changes to the protocol. We need to simply start building real businesses for real people and getting adoption, and that's all that matters.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for your